Hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome. So glad you're here. Thanks for being here for another episode of everything you want to know about the Silva Method. And today we're going to explore more deeply the value for you and I and everybody to not only awaken their intuition, but to develop it, fine tune it. It's a skill like any other skill because we find that today, maybe more than ever, we need to know what's the truth, what can we trust, what can we look at more closely. So, welcome aboard and fasten your seatbelts. Hey, Amy, welcome back. Here we go again.
Hello, I'm so excited. I always love covering intuition, especially to your point about these days, wondering, what can I trust? I know that you and I in our own businesses have started to really have to keep up with AI and all of the things that come with that. And I find that it adds a different layer and a different dynamic in our society today because, again, it's just one more layer to really help us understand how can I trust it? What's true? What's imagination? Because we all know AI can, it has an imagination and can make things up too, just like anything else. So, you know, just all of the layers that we have going on in our society, it's becoming more and more important. It's always been important, but even more so, I feel like now to really understand how to trust your gut.
Yeah, we were later, I remember we were talking about this, and it's getting increasingly more challenging to know what's AI generated and what's real. And
Yes.
although it's always been a concern of misinformation, and we all know that politically, so business wise, on almost every level in life in our civilization, people have attempted to sway the opinion of others.
Hmm.
However, now with AI as a tool, it's getting easier for them. And therefore, this is part of where we're coming from, not just about AI, because it's a great tool and it's a valuable tool, and we all need to use it. All we're saying is that how do you know that this AI generated image, likeness, and information is based on evidence, based on science, based on fact, or just not a fabrication to attempt to manipulate the masses with that.
Exactly.
So in this, what we're going to do is also we're going to share with you some tips, things that you can do, things to be mindful of that will help you to further awaken and focus your intuition with more clarity and more accuracy, frankly, with that. And we'll look at that. So if I may, I would just like to rewind a little bit and add some context before we jump into that. The Silva Method, those of you who know about us, and if you're new to it, welcome, is it started way back in 1944, and it was an act of love. At first, Mr. Silva was concerned about helping his children learn faster, learn easier, so that they would get a good education. They were living in an area, Laredo, Texas, that was perpetuating a high level of poverty. It was However, as he started his research and looked at everything from hypnosis, meditation, wisdom schools, spiritual teachings, etc., etc., the children started anticipating his questions before he asked. They started guessing, it seemed, what he was about to talk about, and there's no way they could have known. He didn't give them that info. And that led him to think that I must be onto something of more value than just memory improvement. And it
Mhm.
became a cornerstone mission of the Silva Method, awakening, developing intuition. Now everyone agrees intuition is a skill, but that's fairly new. Way back when in the 50s, Mr. Silva knew it was a skill and he believed that we all possessed and it could be trained with that. And he went about that, working with that. So that's really where we're coming from. It's like the last frontier, if you will, in our human consciousness to recognize who we are and our place in the universe, our place, if you want to use the language, the field. We all have access to a body of knowledge. Nobody understands why or how that is, but it's been in evidence all throughout history. People on opposite ends of the earth coming up with the same idea, breakthroughs in science, etc., etc., that seem to be there. So that's part of where he was coming from. and looking at that, that this is just too important, and it's become the mission. So the Silva training, we used to call it the basic lecture series, and then we updated it in 2007, Silva Life and Intuition System.
Mhm.
And although a lot of what we do is clearing a path to the higher self, clearing a path to remove the distortions, the blocks, the things that anchor people to problems, anchor people to patterns of behavior that don't serve their highest good. So it is the ultimate self-improvement program with the aim of really getting into awakening these subjective faculties of our human consciousness so that we understand them and can use them in combined efforts with our logic, our reasoning, our objective mode of consciousness to serve us. So I don't want to go too much into that. That's a lot of history. I love our history because I really feel so privileged and honored to be a part of this now for 55 years because God, the guy was a brilliant visionary who was so far ahead of the times. And that's I'm talking about Jose Silva, not Amy. She's too young.
He really is. And every time I am guiding a class, I get even more just in awe and excited because all of the things that we have so much research on now, there are so many books that are written about intuition and gut feeling, and just across the decades, across the hundreds of years documenting. I mean, so many things have been documented on, business people, real thought leaders who went with their gut feeling, um, and data points, but ultimately it almost when you make an intuitive decision, it's almost like I know that I know, but I can't tell you how I know, and it ends up being spot on. It's not logical, and I think that Ken, sometimes that's where we can get caught up because as adults we're so focused on our logic that intuition isn't always logical, and that's an important distinction when we're trusting our gut, trusting our intuition.
I'm smiling and about to laugh, Amy, because, and for you guys watching the video, is everybody tells us trust your intuition, use your intuition. Some of my neuroscience research friends are more and more telling people trust your intuition. But very few of them, if any, tell you how in the world do you know that what you think is your intuition is really valuable, valid, accurate insight, or not just wishful thinking, which is one of the distortions, or not just fear. And you notice it's interesting go on just Instagram, any of the social media, but especially I'm noticing Instagram, all the ads, so many of them are fear based. And they're even being taught that in marketing. You got to set up the problem where the pain is and then address it.
Mhm.
But oftentimes it's an exaggeration. And with this skill, you can see through that so that you're not easily manipulated with that. So let's just jump in. In fact, I think it would be good, Amy, if we just explore a little bit is how in the world do you tell the difference and know you can trust it with respect? So I'll open up and just say in the Silva program, we call it having points of reference,
Mhm.
having evidence based on past experience that I know what I know. I've done this so often, and I also know what I know when I've messed up, when I've screwed up, when I've been misled, when I've been misguided. And
Mhm.
with it takes practice.
Mhm.
And with enough practice, you begin to recognize the patterns and you begin to recognize what's the difference that made the difference when I was accurate, yay, and when I was off.
Mhm.
And it's interesting, Amy, although Jose didn't have this language and didn't have the education way back, but in peak performance studies, they call it deliberate practice, the most effective way to learn anything, where you do something, apply the new skill, apply the new knowledge, and you get immediate feedback, not even an hour later, immediately. And
Mhm.
interestingly enough, That's what we do in our classes from the beginning. We play all sorts of games with intuition where you're doing this with your partner, with fellow classmates. And the best way is, of course, in person. It's a whole different experience. And in doing that, you get immediate feedback, yay or nay. And not
Yes.
just once, because in order to create this new neural pattern, you got to have repetition. Without repetition, by default, we slip back into the old patterns.
Yeah.
And therefore, in our classes, you're getting constant feedback about applying the visualization skills, the mental rehearsal skills, and the meditations that we're doing.
Hmm.
And at least 13 times in our classes, you're going to get feedback on what we call case working. And I like to call them games with intuition for that. So whether you're in the silver class or otherwise, that is the most important proponent is that you've got to have a whole history of evidence from your own direct experience, not what I tell you or what you read in a book or what somebody inspires you about, but from your own, because it's hard to put words into it. It's something very much that's internalized. And when we recognize that, and that's part of where meditation comes in too, because meditation is just an awakening of our consciousness to hang out with who we are and how we think and to detach from the distractions. Because, golly, physically speaking, objectively, there's so many distractions that we run the risk of getting off our game, getting off our mission or our purpose. With that.
Exactly. I think that um, when so to your point, when we're in class, having that deliberate practice and actually doing it, there's so much research because of how people are digesting information. This research is being repeated and redone, that it's still clear that people retain more and understand things more when they actually do it, when they have deliberate practice. Even though we have, speaking of AI, all of these tools that we can use to throw things in AI and help them, give us bullet points and understand it, until we actually do it and see how it
Mm.
relates to us and our life, because we are a walking human fingerprint. We're all completely different. And so how we process information is different. So it's like making a recipe. You've got a recipe and it's your favorite recipe. You First time you make it, you're following the instructions just like they say. And the feedback is, well, you make the dish, you taste it. Oh, I might need a little extra salt, or oh man, I missed an ingredient. That's your feedback. And the more you make the recipe, the more you perfect it, the more you maybe add in some things that you prefer, then it becomes second nature. You don't even need the structure any longer. And that's actually what I love about the Silva method is in class, we're doing that deliberate practice. It is a step by step structure. Hey, follow your gut. Okay, Amy. Okay, Ken. How do I do that? What's the process? We give you the process step by step. You play with it. You get feedback. You get the recipe back. You start understanding how you process information. And you've got these frames of reference, this evidence that you can rely on so that when you're out in the world making your decisions, finding yourself in new situations, you've got that to that reference to refer to.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring that up about the structure because not too long ago I was reading, uh, some people call it now high performance. Decades ago it was peak performance, but the people doing what they call flow research,
Mm-hmm.
flow, when you're in a flow state, it feels like the universe has got your back.
Mm-hmm.
And the studies, there's a fascinating studies that they're doing about the importance of structure and how structure is needed initially to develop any new skill. It gives us clarity and it gives us focus so that we're not aimlessly wandering. And when I heard that, I'm thinking, God, the old man, as in Jose Silva, was on again because our program, the Silva program, is very structured. It's more structured than any of the meditation programs out there. And that's why I believe so many millions and millions have been through the program with results, that structure. once it's ingrained, the structure becomes less necessary, so to speak, because you're on autopilot. So that's an important consideration if you want to awaken, develop your intuition. But I like to, while you were talking, I'm
Mhm.
reminded of a quick story. It actually goes back a bunch of decades, but it's a fun story, and I think it's so relevant. And you guys watching this, if you can relate to this in your own life, it's about an entrepreneur way back when, and he's taking a shower. And entrepreneur, if you're an entrepreneur, you know they're high risk takers and always up with ideas, idea people. And he's in the shower and he has an idea, flash an idea about a new business opportunity, which is not unusual because he's always thinking opportunities. But this particular one was the idea to manufacture and to market, to sell stuffed pandas, the bear that's typically from China.
Mhm.
When he brought this to his team and he brought this to his partners and investors, they all poo-pooed it. Logically, they said, ah, that doesn't feel good. I mean, it's cute. It's a cute animal, but the teddy bear has a corner on the market. We need another stuffed animal like a hole in the head. And literally, he was put down. But it felt so strong. He had been there, done that. And this is the idea about the points of reference, evidence. Based on experiences he had, he believed he could trust us. There was something to it. So he pulled out all the plugs and invested himself and started manufacturing stuffed pandas, started creating then the marketing program where they were going to sell it. But what's fascinating is in the same period of time, Richard Nixon was president of the US and had made the famous trip to China, built inroads with at the time the Chinese government of friendship, and brought back with him a taste of Chinese culture. And you know how, especially in America, how we are, and all of a sudden, and they donated the Chinese government to the Smith to the zoos, the U.S. Zoo in D.C., a panda and a few other zoos, and almost overnight, interest peaked because it was so new, so unique. We always like new things, and stuffed pandas. And he was there ready in the market, and his sales went through the roof. And can you relate? I mean, can you think of people you know in your life or history is full of examples like that? And that's what, so we're not saying you just have an idea and then poof, it's magic, because so many inventors will have ideas and they don't pan out, or they spend years working on it objectively to make it real, to create it physically, and that takes, where you need to combine your logic, your higher thinking skills, your critical thinking skills with your intuition.
Yep.
But I always remember that to me is just a classic example of how often, how many times you had, oh, I wish I had listened. I knew better. And then, of course, there are times when we're happy we had listened with that. So, Amy, I'm thinking rather than to maybe dive into some of the tips that we could offer
Mhm.
of what helps people to further awaken and develop their intuition. So, I'll let you go first.
Well, the first one is learn how to meditate. I think a lot of people put in searching these days, how do I meditate? Well, why is that important? One, it's important to learn how to relax, and relaxation is one of the main ways you can awaken your intuition. When you are in a relaxed state, that's when the ideas come. That's when the creativity comes. You mentioned that this entrepreneur who was like, I've got to sell stuffed pandas, he was in the shower. How many of you have gotten ideas in the shower? I'm going to raise my hand on that one. Well, why? Well, we're showering. Water in and of itself is relaxing. We're in a relaxed state. If you're in the bathtub, taking a bath, we're relaxed. We're in warm water, maybe cold water, but it's we're relaxed. If you're doing something repetitive, I know sometimes just washing the dishes or loading the dishwasher, I know sometimes it can be a chore, but if you're doing something repetitive or even something that you enjoy, maybe you love painting, maybe you love running, whatever it is that you love to do, do it. Because when you do it, you are more relaxed, you're happy. That brings up all of these creative ideas. It can put you into the flow. You were mentioning the flow state. And I mentioned meditation because that is a way for you to learn how to relax. In the Silva Method, we give you a step by step structure on how to first get relaxed and then focus your mind onto what it is, what project you're working on, what problem you're trying to solve. But that is relaxation, whether you're meditating, whether you're doing something you love. That is the number one way to awaken that intuition.
Yeah, I have to agree, and all the research shows that, and all the evidence. For me, I raised my hand, and actually, occasionally, when I get some of my best ideas, is when I'm working out quietly. I'm not in a gym at home,
Hmm.
and not heavy workout, but like a lot of stretching, or when I go for a walk. Living in a rural community, I don't go on a treadmill or go to the gym. I walk in nature. I walk where there's very little traffic or people, and I'm surrounded by trees, and I find that's another one that helps. So Amy asked the question, why is that important? That's just a little science piece. We know that when people are living in survival, when people are in, which is called stress mode, it
Hmm.
builds, causes them to be in scarcity consciousness. And it goes into survival and security. And that's a natural block to intuition and the higher thinking functions of the brain. It's the number one reason why people don't get what they want. When people become obsessive and they
Hmm.
don't learn, do the work, and then at one point you got to let go, you got to surrender. And that's the point that Amy's making about taking a bath or doing something that's relaxing. That's when we get, the insight. So that would be absolutely research shows number one. I'll add another one, and that would be having a deep sense of purpose
Mm.
as to why it's important, as opposed to the frivolous, let's play a psychic whoopee game and look how psychic I am. And I'll give you a real world example. Some of you, depending on your background, parapsychology is the branch of psychology that deals with this. And the forefather of the word ESP and goes back to Duke University, Dr. J.B. Rhine in the 1950s.
Mhm.
And Dr. Rhine's wife, Louisa Rhine, wrote a book based on their experience in the laboratory. Dr. Rhine is the one who developed what are called ESP cards. If ever you've seen them, there are 5 different symbols: a star, a wavy line, a cross, a circle, and a rectangle. There are 5 of each. There are 25 in the deck. And statistically, so it's 25 cards, 5 possibilities. Anyway, the mathematics is 20% should be done accurately by guesswork alone, just by the mathematics. So that means if you guess out of 100 guesses, 25%, that's considered statistically significant ESP. 50, of course, is better, and 80%. He also developed if you saw the movie Ghostbusters, the random lights, green, red, or that,
Mhm.
him in their lab. And again, they found that people would, when they went beyond statistic of guess and they kept working on it, they would often be as accurate as 80%. But what started happening was they dropped off,
Mhm.
almost as if they lost the ability,
Mhm.
it seemed, and they couldn't do it. And at first they're wondering, gee, what's going on? Was it just, luck?
Mhm.
Because, you have to have a lot of repetitions to see, is there a learning curve? Is it repeatable? Or was it just an anomaly?
Mhm.
And this is what they found out. For some reason, when they had the ESP cards, they then developed the random generated lights, red and the green.
Mhm.
And when they posed to the same people whose accuracy dropped way off, and they gave them the new challenge, guess what? Their
Mhm.
accuracy went back up again to as high as 80%. And
Mhm.
eventually, after repeating it, it dropped off again. And what they realized, and she commented, was they were bored. The brain, our brains are so sophisticated. You are far more powerful than you realize. You have far more God-given, whatever you want to call it, capability than you realize. And that's part of what our mission is for people like Amy and I and our fellow instructors globally, is to help people recognize that and to provide a structured framework where you can build on that.
Mhm.
And so that's what I mean by having a sense of purpose. And maybe it might be to serve. Maybe it might be to help your coach clients better, your patients, if you're a nurse, you're a doctor. Maybe it might be to understand your children better so that you can be a better parent and guide them, or a better teacher, and whatever it might be. Having a sense of purpose of why it is you want to get more accurate, reliable information, I would say is key. It's pretty close to being in a relaxed, quiet state of mind and being.
Absolutely. The purpose also dives into what Mr. Silva called the having a having faith, and by that I mean desire, belief, and expectancy that somehow, some way, we'll figure it out. When we're working on something, if we don't have the desire to do it, are we going to get very far? Probably not, right? And one way to increase that desire is to really ask questions about why, when we're working on something, why
Mm,
it is important to us, why it's going to help us, how is it going to make your life different and better. That really also helps us dive into that purpose of why we're working on it, right? Sometimes it might help you understand more that maybe you're not in aligned with it and you've got to make some shifts or adjustments. But ultimately, having that purpose and really understanding how it's going to affect you, how it's going to help you, you know, serve better, be better, do better, whatever it is that you're working on, and give you that sense of purpose and help you understand your sense of purpose and increase that desire, then you're automatically, whenever you're working on it, if it's something you want to do, something you understand how it's going to make your life better, then are you maybe you might have a little stress on certain things that you're working on, but ultimately you understand the bigger picture. You're going to be more relaxed. You're going to enjoy working on it because you know it's going to help you make your life better. When you're more relaxed, you're going to activate that intuition. And then ultimately, it becomes about having those frames of reference with your intuition, learning how to recognize, because we're always getting intuitive input, always, every day, always, always. But most of us just don't understand that we are getting it and how to recognize it and be aware of it. And that's where what we teach comes in, because we have this wonderful, we're with like minded individuals who want to understand better. You're with an instructor, whether it's me or Ken or one of our awesome instructors across the world. They're there. They practice it, they teach it, they can guide you, you can ask questions in a safe space where when we do these exercises where we get the immediate feedback with our intuition, and you can start to develop, okay, th- this is what that is. Now you become more aware of that information coming in when you're working on those big goals and your purpose.
I'm smiling again because that's a really important point, because it also motivates people. When people are working on achieving a goal, when people are doing mental rehearsal skills, sure way to stay into the game is have reasons why you're doing it, intrinsically and extrinsically, benefits for yourself, benefits for anyone you care about. So let's do one more
Let's
and
do
jump
it.
in and maybe start finishing up we could go on and on. It's I know
We
I
could.
can say speak for Amy, it's our favorite topic, not just because it's the mission of the program, but there's so many far-reaching possibilities of awakening our consciousness and developing it so that we recognize it's like you are the universe and the universe is you. And as more and more we do that, that's really what could lead us ultimately to more harmony on the planet and world peace. and decisions that look at the long range implications and not just the quick profit motive for the immediate result, with that.
Hmm.
So I would add another one is be playful, not a
Yes.
job, not work, and so on. And that's why you've heard me say, and often we call them games of intuition.
Hmm.
It's not an assignment when you play with them. I mean, think when you play a game, you have fun. And when you're having fun, it's like if you're playing a game with your family or you want to have a conversation with somebody, surest way, especially if it's not happening, play a game. Play Scrabble, play cards, something, a board game, because it lends to having invariably a conversation. If you're
Hmm.
watching TV together, there's no conversation. If you're like me, I open my mouth and I ask because it's not appropriate to talk during a movie or a show for that. So the playfulness, it takes the pressure off. It goes back to Amy's point about relaxation. You're taking the pressure off and you're not in a competitive mode of I got to be right. I got to show I'm more intuitive than him or her or whatever. When
Hmm.
we let it go and give it all up, so to speak, we surprise ourselves.
Hmm.
So look at it that way in the sense of be playful. Uh, and that's why young children, before they get socialized and conditioned and civilized, they're naturally intuitive. Prior to puberty, young children, especially up to 5 and 7, they read the room better than anybody. They don't even realize it, but they know exactly who to go to when they want chocolate or this or that, whether it be mom or dad or grandma or grandpa and so on. As my son likes to say, I'm the, what does he call me? The loose link or the, the softy, because
Yes.
the grandkids. And I laugh. I know, I realize it, but that's what grandparents are for. And I don't really just spoil them frivolously, but I think my children are way more strict than they need to be with their kid. And I probably was the same way with them. But as you get older and you realize you don't have to be so. But
Yeah.
anyway, so what we're saying, be relaxed,
Hmm.
find ways, anything, whether it be through meditation, walking in nature, taking a bath, listening to your favorite music, have a purpose, a deep sense of purpose, a sense of mission, why it's important to you and anyone you care about, and then be playful, especially when you're practicing, because you got to practice. You need to hone the skill. It
Yes.
doesn't happen because you're a good person. It happens, or when you relax, because you could still be confused.
Hmm.
Like any skill, you know, the old joke about how do you get. I did this in my last class immersion, and I mentioned it popped in my head the old joke about, hey, how do I get to somebody in the streets of Manhattan, New York City, asked, how do I get to Carnegie Hall? And the person looked and said, practice, practice, practice. They were
Yeah.
looking for other. And I did this. And one of the students looked at me and said, I've actually been to Carnegie Hall a few times to play. She's a,
Oh.
um, a horn player. Um, it's called the French horn. She's
Uh-huh.
on the French horn and plays in many symphonies. I said, whoa, really? I didn't know that. Anyway,
Oh.
so it's always good to be here with you, Amy, as we do this. And I sincerely hope that you guys watching, if you stay to the end, that says a lot about you. Thank you for gracing us with your time and energy. More importantly, though, truly hope that you found this of value and that I know that shall I say, when you apply some of these takeaways, you
Hmm.
will get the results for that. Anybody can. You just got to pay attention, give it attention, and give it some time because you're worth it. This is your life and it's up to you because be a user of knowledge, integrate it into your life, not just a consumer of knowledge, having all these good facts. Okay, that's great, but what good does it do you or anybody in the world?
Ab- Ken, I know I said absolutely before, but yes, so much so. If you stay true to who you are, your core values, do what you love, when you're doing that, you'll be more relaxed. You'll be more aware of those special feelings that come in of, oh, I got a feeling to go this way or a feeling to go that way. Or maybe it's, maybe it's a visual. You just get a picture of something, or maybe a little voice inside your head says, go that way. And pay attention to those. Pay attention to the information coming in when you're really focused on something that brings you joy, when you're doing something that's relaxing, and know that this is what we're here for. We were all put here for a purpose, and we all have our own unique purpose. And I hope so much, just like Ken said, that this resonated with you. I know that Ken and I and all of our instructors really love what we do, and we love bringing this information to you. I am in Atlanta and in Georgia. Excuse me. Ken, you might have to take it away for a moment.
Okay, while Amy's clearing her throat for that, yeah, forgive us for not. You can see actually when we publish the recording, our names don't appear. Ken Coscia is my name. I'm the training director. I'm the lead instructor. I've been doing this Memorial Day weekend will be my 55th year doing this. And as Amy said, they say if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. Well, that's so true. However, it's a lot of work, and we do it graciously, for that. And I offer the classes what we now call the immersion of life and intuition system in
Mhm.
Chicago area, for the Northeast here in Connecticut, Farmington, Connecticut, and occasionally in the Boston community. And I say it that way because I feel so blessed and fortunate. People travel to all of us instructors, no matter where we're located in the U.S., people are traveling from all over because they have a high level of commitment. I have people flying in for a program coming up from India. It's a long, bloody flight and expensive. So I often tell people that when they live maybe 100 miles away and they're complaining, well, it's a long drive. Are you kidding me? There are people flying in from all over. And excuse me, but just remember, it's your life and invest in yourself.
Yes, absolutely.
So
And
you want to finish up where you teach, or you want me to?
yes, yes. So I am in Atlanta and Georgia, and then also in Asheville, North Carolina, and the Western North Carolina cities there. So I love this. It's my passion. It took me a long time to figure that out, but I can't imagine anything else that I would love to do more, and I just want to do this for the rest of my life.
All righty. And take care. Amy, always a pleasure doing these together.
You too.